Great. And if it's okay, tell us a little bit about Module C, because that seems to be stumping a lot of students as well. How do you prepare for that? You've got 3 different possible types. We know they could ask for a specific type: imaginative, persuasive, discursive. So what was your approach to preparing for that? Did you memorize a core composition and variations for the different types?
Yeah, Module C was honestly a very different module for me. And I found what worked for me was first knowing what markers like to read in Module C. So what Module C is really about. So one thing I found really important in Module C was having really that sense of purpose. I know what worked for me was that I had that really good like creative. I really like to write.
Was it so you had a core imaginative draft that you learned? Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually what I did. And I had a core management draft and I knew the ideas really well. So yeah, I practiced on like 3 different prescribed texts.
Yeah, great. So just back to the point on preparing those cores. So you had the core imaginative, you knew that off by heart. Is that am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And I assume you're actually able to use that, I think, for the question you got. What if they asked you for a persuasive discursive? Did you practice a variation of that, or were you going to do a completely different piece?
For my one, I actually wrote about Jane Eyre, kind of like intertextuality of it. But
so you wrote about another author, which would have worked so well for that visual stimulus of the kind of pencil. It was very much, it very much played into that intertextual, even metatextual idea.
So I just knew a lot about that one author, one text. And so I could easily adapt that into discourse. For example, I could talk a lot about like feminism in like my discursive or persuasive, also combine it with Margaret Atwood's one as well. So just really worked really well to find what sort of things work for you, do a bit of research.
Yeah, that's great. So I because I just want people to kind of leave with this with a clear plan if they're in the situation of preparing now. I mean, tell me if I'm right in saying this. Your approach was pick the style of writing that you like best. For instance, for you wanted an imaginative piece as your core one. The way you wrote that was based off the prescribed text or even multiple prescribed texts that you'd studied.
I mostly borrowed for Colin McCann for one of them, but I wrote enough for different ones.
Got it. Okay, cool. So prioritized one prescribed text, borrowed a couple of stylistic elements, wrote your own piece in an imaginative form, but then knew how to adapt what you were writing about into a discursive or persuasive, but you had one core one and then you were going to adapt either side. And you did practice writing the other 2 forms out?
Yeah, maybe a bit less on the persuasive one, but yeah, I did write like practice discursives.
Yeah, that's right. And I think like, clearly you still went so well. It's about managing your time and priorities, isn't it? Like you can't spend all your time doing all of these different what if scenarios, but you should definitely be familiar with all 3 of the styles there.